Cool. All right. Well, today we have Joe Shuchat, founder of Mindful Sports Group. Joe, really appreciate you hanging out with me today, man. This should be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a blast. We've Joe and I have known each other for a little while now. Oh, I'm gonna actually have to take a pause. Joe, you know Drake.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't put that in my notes. And then I just remembered it now. So when do you want to talk about Drake? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, whatever you need me to do. Uh,
I'm
you know,
only kidding. I'm only kidding. Don't worry.
I'm happy. I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, childhood friend. See him whenever I get fortunate enough to get the opportunity. If I'm lucky, maybe once a year. I try and stay out of his way. I try not to bug him as best. Obviously he's a busy guy. Everybody wants some of his time, and um, he's doing some very special things. I think he's just a very unique individual who has really good intentions, and um, fortunate to have somebody to look up to from a motivational perspective. Just the element of anything is possible. He's really um, he's very unique. He works really hard, and he's just a great role model for a lot of people. And just the element of not caring what people say about him, and just kind of being successful through, in a time where everything you do is extremely magnified, and
Hmm.
he can't really go anywhere, so it's just, to have somebody like that to just watch from a distance, but at the same time, I'm, marginally closer to him than others. And, um, it's just really cool to see that if you want to dream big, there's no limit to how big you can dream.
I
So
love it.
just that. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you. I think that's enough Drake talk. That is awesome. I'll be totally honest. I completely forgot until about right now. So glad we got a little bit of that in. I think if there's a better way to start an episode, I'm really interested in your story, but I'm not gonna lie to you, man. If we can get Drake in, a friend of Drake's on, I think that is pretty sweet. But other than that, the first question I always like to ask everybody is, why do you love sports?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think that sports is, everything from the competitive side to it to getting into the minutia and the detail of it. There's just so many different elements to it. And, I'm a very competitive guy, both, in business, in life, in sport. And it's really just an element of life that, you can learn so much from. Obviously I would say golf has been a huge part of my life since I was a child, and a lot of the lessons that I learned from golf are very, very, there's a ton of crossover in terms of how it fits into your life, and things like staying in the moment, being present, not overreacting to little things that happen here or there, focusing on yourself, not looking and comparing yourself to others, beating your own course as opposed to, beating somebody else. And, if you focus on yourself, typically it goes your way. And, you don't get concerned in some of those other things. So I just think, all sports are kind of like that in a sense. And, you know, huge Toronto Raptor fan, huge Maple Leaf fan. So, team sports as well. Just the, working in a team, working in a company is very similar to being on a sports team. And I think that having, sports, there's very much a clearly defined goal at the end of the day. So you have this simple to define outcome goal regardless of the sport, and it's just, whether it's a team sport or an individual sport, just working towards accomplishing those goals and having this super measurable end. In life, sometimes success can be defined by a lot of different things, and in sport, the goal is very clear. So I just think that there's an element of, you know being the best, and that's something that's always kind of resonated well with me. I think, the Raptors are a very good example of, nobody has the expectation that especially this year. Last year obviously we had Kawhi Leonard and we were a great team, and we won. But then you come back this year and everybody's kind of saying, well, you don't have a superstar, you don't have this, and it's just a group of guys who are going about their business, they're working together, they're doing the right things, and it's success. And I just love to see, you know the unexpected outcome, the beating the odds sorts of stories. And sports has that everywhere you look, basically.
Absolutely. And you bring up a lot of really good points during that. So I appreciate it. So as of recording, I think the Raptors just had like a 20 game win streak or something snapped.
Yeah, they won
Just
15 great games
15?
and
Okay.
then lost 2 nights ago.
Yeah, yeah. Still, either way, it's incredible. And you make a great point. You know, last year, obviously, with Kawhi Leonard, it was they maybe weren't the favorite, but they were definitely up there. They were one of the two or three teams, them, Philly, and the Bucks. Everyone expected one of them to come out of the East. Obviously, it was the Raptors. I was all for it. Let's go. I jumped on that bandwagon real hard. But this year, especially, as you said, it's always in sports, it's a very clearly defined goal. Like, let's be the best. I want to be number one. But as you hear more and more people talk, especially in the business world and in the sports world, it's let's pay attention less to the outcome and more to the process on how to get there. So how do you feel about that aspect of it too, especially again thinking about this year's Raptors team? Of course they want to win, but at the same time they can't think about all the ancillary outdoor or the outside noise, and understanding if they just go about their business day by day and follow the process, it'll actually make it easier to actually get to that outcome.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm a huge process guy. I talk about it with the golfers all the time. And I think that it just, looking at the Raptors organization, it's leadership. You look at, whether it's Masai Ujiri or Nick Nurse coaching the team, there's just a clear group of leaders within the organization at every single level, whether it's, Masai as the GM or Nick as the coach or Kyle as kind of the I guess the team captain or the team leader in that sense, but down to the medical department, they have an unbelievable, sports science department that has clear leadership in Alex McKechnie, and that's where the process is derived from, is that you've got these leaders that can clearly articulate what they want the team and the individuals to do. There's I wouldn't say, you don't want to fear your leaders, but I think that you have this unbelievable amount of respect for the leadership group, and it allows a lot of the young guys to buy into what's going on when you've got a group of veterans and so just the process to me is everything. And I think that, it crosses over into what I do with the golfers. Is it's easy to get ahead of yourself. It's easy to look forward. It's a lot of small details on a continuous effort, day in, day out, hour by hour, minute by minute, shot by shot. And that's where the success comes from. And a lot of people look at things like it's very glamorous. I don't know the NBA life, so to speak, very well. I don't know any of the Raptors or anything like that, but it's not nearly as, if it's anything like the golf, it's not nearly as glamorous as people think. You're on the road, you've got an 82 game season that lasts, 8 months, and your family is away from you. You're not at home. You're living out of a suitcase for weeks at a time. All while grinding and working towards, being great and kind of doing unexpected things as a high level professional athlete. So just being able to have the right group of leaders, the right group of people around you, and just day in and day out, the process to me is kind of the coolest part. I think the late Kobe always talked about, just doing the right things over and over, and just kind of pushing the limit, and everything will come to you in time, so long as you just focus on what you need to do today. And then having, kind of an assembly line like process, in the sense that everybody does. It's, Bill Belichick always talks about just do your role. You have your role, and everything at the end of the day always works out. And the process to me is very cool, because when you get into it and you start to look at all of these things, it's very cool to see how much detail goes into it. And just understanding how much complexity is there. And if everybody does the right things, legitimately anything is possible in anything, whether it's Drake in the music or whatever he's doing, or in basketball with the Raptors, or the golfers that I work with, or anything like that. If you just focus on the now, you stay in the present, you do what you need to do today. If you do this consistently enough, that outcome goal will be achieved, or
100%.
you'll come as close to achieving it as you
Exactly. Yeah.
possibly can.
Yeah. I love it. Process is definitely something, I have a couple sticky notes on my desk that say just follow the process, those kinds of things, because people do get caught up in the outcome way more often than, if you always think about the outcome, you're going to kind of forget about the process. And it's ironic because the more you follow the process, as we've just been talking about, the closer you will get potentially to the outcome you're seeking. So I think it is really interesting. So let's talk about the golfers a little bit. So as I said, founder of Mindful Sports Group. It's pretty interesting. You do it's golf representation and sports technology consulting. So first, I do want to focus on the golfers a little bit. I'm sure there's a Venn diagram here where there's a middle ground. But as you said, you work with golfers, you represent them. What exactly does this look like? I know you're not representing golfers on the PGA Tour yet, at least as of our last conversation. That was not the case. But I mean, what does it look like, and how are you helping these golfers from the mental side, from the sports side, and making sure that they're doing everything they need to do with the process to get to where they're looking to go to?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's the easiest way is for me to just kind of tell the story of how I got into the golf
Love it.
representation side. I think it'll give you a clear idea of how you can help these guys. And again, the major part of the story is that you find unique young individuals who have this extremely unique skill set and just need to understand how to harness it to get the most out of it. And basically, been in sports tech now for, let's say, a decade, really, almost a decade, sort of, probably, started roughly 10 years ago, and had an idea for golfers where the premise was to track anything and everything that they do, and was fortunate enough that when I graduated from university, I started to caddy on tour. The first event I did was the US Open, caddied in, web.com or Nationwide or Corn Ferry, whatever you want to call it. You know, and saw that the guys at the upper echelon pyramid had access to information that, young athletes, or really the general public for that matter, really had no way of getting that information, and wanted to figure out how I could take a lot of the stuff that the tour players were using and kind of get it to the masses to help create, a more educated, smarter.
So is this because they don't have the money? Is this because they don't have the resources or the network, or is it something that was just kind of kept locked away in a box somewhere?
I would say mostly just kept away, locked in a box.
Okay.
The guys didn't want to share their secrets with the world, and they felt that was their competitive advantage. And you would
Okay.
see, it's not like there's an answer to this. This is the great golf question. If you can answer this question, you'll be great. It's just, again, it's the process. It's a lot of little things that you saw that guys were doing that you wouldn't even think about. All the way down to nutrition, to meditation, to mental conditioning, to things that you wouldn't necessarily, if you weren't locked in and wired in, you wouldn't know where to look for it. So it was just little things. You get in conversations with some of the best trainers in the world, some of the best coaches in the world, and you would hear things that they say, and you would innately know that these are not concepts that the general public really would ever have access to. Unfortunately, sorry, my phone rang. I don't know if that got picked up on the
Nope. You're
thing.
perfect. You're good.
So wanted to kind of take some of these messages that I learned and saw some of the things that were going on, and wanted to get them out to the masses. So went back to school, learned how to code a bit. I knew how to code a little bit, but needed to kind of formalize that, and also wanted to meet other people that were learning how to code or knew how to code. Ended up hiring one of the kids in the class. Ended up hiring the professor to be my CTO after a little bit of success within what we were doing. Grew the company and partnered with Golf Channel, Under Armour, IBM Watson. The list of companies that we worked with, went on and on. Got a number of users, roughly over 20,000 users, and got acquired in 2016. Worked for the company that acquired us for the year that I had to work there, and just realized at the end of the day that I'm just an entrepreneur, and kind of putting yourself into somebody else's dream or somebody else's system wasn't something that wasn't necessarily for me, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah,
And
yeah.
left and then tried to figure out what I wanted to do. I hadn't played golf, because when you're an entrepreneur and you have a startup company, you're so devoted to doing it that, I had, I guess you could say, I lost my golf game for a little bit, and wanted to get back to enjoying life, and wanted to travel and see the world. And at that point, I had never been to Europe. So it was one of the things that I always wanted to do, was kind of go to Europe and see what Europe is all about, and travel around and just enjoy life. Because
So, so before we get to that though, could you explain a little bit more about what that application or that software was that helped, as you said, over 20,000? I'm sure that that number has grown significantly since.
yeah, so basically the premise of it was to um, track any and everything that a golfer would need in order to get better. Um, so it looked at things like swing analysis software, statistics tracking, practice and workout building. We had, a piece for high school golfers to, um, track their resume so they could send it to college coaches. It did a variety of different things. It did online scheduling so coaches could get, lessons booked. Really just trying to create a smarter golf industry while helping golfers just to understand different areas that they could go to get better, and kind of organize them, and help them create, what we're talking about, and creating a process. If you do these 10 things that are in the app every day for an extended period of time, it would be impossible for you to not get better at the end of the day.
Right back to the process. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So, kind of, went through that, got acquired, um, worked at Blast for a year, and always kind of knew that I was never going to leave golf. I think that one of the things that there was a lot of success within the company just based on the passion around golf at the end of the day. Live golf, love golf, have grown up. It's kind of the thing that I would say that I know. And ended up caddying for a friend of mine in European Tour Q School, probably 4 or 5 months after I had left working for the company that acquired us, and ran into a couple other players that I knew while I was out there. Ended up running into one of the guys after the tournament was over on the underground in London, and said, "Hey, I can caddy for you in the next round of qualifying if you want." And he said, "Sure." Go and caddy for him in qualifying, and we're one of the days that we were out there, he said, "Hey, I have this friend of mine. He's really good. He needs a little bit of money, and he probably needs some of the people within your network to kind of help him take that next step." Got on the phone with this player. His name's Victor Perez. And at the time, he was ranked about 375-ish in the world. Which is, very good. Tons of positives to get to that point by yourself. And, at the time he was 25 years old. And basically heard a few things that really kind of struck a chord with me in terms of his level of intelligence. This is a kid born in France who went to New Mexico University without knowing a single word of English, and learned English while he was there, and graduated from university, in an English-speaking country, and speaks English very well with a very minimal to no accent. Asked him a couple of questions about his finances. He sent me a very organized, detailed outline of kind of the expenses for the previous year before I had met him and what it kind of cost him. And I looked at this document and said, "This looks like it's done by a CFO, not a
Not a
professional."
25-year-old kid.
Yeah, exactly. So I was kind of really intrigued, that there was somebody that was this organized, this disciplined, but at the same time, uber young and uber raw. And basically said to him, "Hey, I like everything that you're saying. I think you have a ton of potential." I had never seen him hit a golf ball up to this point, which I think is kind of the funniest part of the whole story. Just kind of went based mostly off of the mental side of things. I think that he's intelligent enough. I think he's smart enough.
Plus, if you get to 375 in the entire world, obviously he has some sort of skill set, right? Like
Exactly.
I mean,
You just know, and the
exactly,
person
yeah.
who referred me to him, is somebody that if he says that he can play, I would take his word for it, sort of deal, because he can really play. So ended up putting together a deal with him where I would lend him whatever money he needed. He could pay me back when he made it. I would take I guess in a sense, 100% of the risk. If you flame out and you don't make it, I lose the money. If you become an uber success, then everybody wins, sort of deal. He said, sure. And, lent him a little bit of money. And then just kind of observed for, call it 4 or 5 months. I just observed, okay, what's he doing? Who's his coach? How involved are his parents? Is he dating someone? Just trying to observe everything that was kind of going on in his life without really making changes. I think that's one of the things I learned when I went through the acquisition, is sometimes just sitting back and watching, is very important before you kind of chime in and start speaking your mind. Is, what is happening here? How can we make it better? What's he doing that's great too? I think that's one of the things too, is you want to tell him where he's doing the right things and where he's being great, but you also want to find areas where, okay, we can get better here. And there were plenty of areas that were great. In fact, the whole golf side of the equation was great. There were other elements where money could solve a lot of problems. If you can pay a more experienced caddy a little bit more money than, just taking somebody new every week. If you could, get the right sports psychologist in the mix, I call the one that we set Victor up with, she's more of a sports therapist than a sports psychologist. Getting the right fitness trainer into the mix as well was also very huge for Victor. And, basically layered on pieces over the course of, the first year. He came third on the Challenge Tour, which got him all the way to the European Tour. And then last year, again, we were able to kind of get JP Fitzgerald on his bag, who caddied for Rory McIlroy for a really long period of time. Their fourth week out, they won the Alfred Dunhill. They came fourth in the WGC in China a couple weeks after that, and then lost in a playoff in Turkey the week after China. And Victor finished the year 44 in the world. First tournament of the year, came second. He's now 41 or 42 in the world. I'm not 100. So Victor will be making his major championship debut at the Masters.
Nice. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. So he's, but it was looking at what he's doing, and I think it's important. One of the great things about the way the interview started was that the first question was really around process. And, with Victor, he's very process oriented, and he was willing to put in the work. He was willing to take constructive criticism. He's a very humble, I don't want to say kid, because he's not a kid anymore. And he, just his willingness to want to try things, really helped him kind of turn the corner. He's, like you said there, he's technically not a PGA Tour player yet. I would be very surprised if, he's got FedEx Cup points from China and things like that. So he, indirectly will most likely be a PGA Tour player in the near future. But, just kind of helped him kind of derive his process and kind of hone in on the things that he was doing well, but also added layers to, got him the best trainer in the game, got him, the best sports psychologist in the game, got him the right putting coach to help him improve his putting, and just looking for little bits and pieces here and there. And, when you get to that level, you're not looking for much. You're really looking for decimals of gains here and there. And that, got him to have some success. And now we've since signed a couple other players that we're going through kind of the same process with them right now, trying to get them, all the little things to help them get better. And I would say that we've probably turned a few heads with how we're doing things. And we've got 4 players under our umbrella now, and are always looking to kind of add, we have a very good understanding now of how the system works and how you can help guys get better. And it's a little bit different of an agency model than, some of our competition. We're more performance focused. The way we see it is we'll get you to be a top 50 player in the world. And once you get there, all the endorsements kind of will come. So yeah. It's not as much about making a few bucks here or there. It's more about let's be great and know that when we become great, everything will fall into place. And
Absolutely.
you
And
know, it. Yep.
I think it's just really cool the again, just going back to the process of how you went about helping him with his process, right? Like I think it's really interesting how you just said you observed for 4 or 5 months just to see what's going on, because you can't just come in and start throwing stuff against the wall and just be like, oh no, you have to do it this way. Like obviously, again, Victor was your first client in this aspect. And just kind of seeing and understanding what he's doing and maybe some new ways that you can help him out. And another word that you used a little bit earlier on in the conversation as well, consistency. You got him one caddy. Now he's not using a different person every single week. You got him
Right.
a coach, a specific trainer, someone to help him. And the consistency aspect of the process, I think, is is a huge chunk of it, because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, as we talked about with the Raptors, it's very similar, I'm sure, with all sports and in business. Just doing the right thing over and over again will continue to build upon itself to the point where you just get better and better without even potentially realizing what's going on. So I think it's awesome. Congratulations. He's going to the Masters. I hope that means you get to go to the Masters too. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been joking with a bunch of people that my 12-year-old self is just over the moon with all of this stuff. And it's funny when we set Victor's schedule at the start of the year, that top 50 is a major threshold. It basically, if you're inside the top 50, you can basically, for the most part, pick your own schedule. And when we set it, I've since hired somebody to help to come on and kind of help me with just all of the things that we got going on. And we looked at the schedule, and Victor kind of was making fun of me because all of the tournaments that I chose to go to were all of the major events. So it was
yeah.
things like the majors, and he's playing in the Olympics for France in August. So it's like my schedule is all of the biggest things. And he was kind of saying, oh yeah, these tournaments are too small for Joe to come to, or things like that. So yeah, it's very exciting. It's very fun. It's super rewarding. When he won the tournament at the end of October, or sorry, at the end of September, beginning of October, just to know that you're part of the team, to know that you helped somebody kind of achieve one of their major goals, it's more rewarding than kind of anything I had done in my life. And you just want more. I think that one of the things that makes Victor very special is that he won the tournament. He called the sports psychologist. He did his statistics. He did the media that they wanted him to do. And then he went and did a post-round workout before he went and celebrated. And I think that, he's so big on routine and so big on that consistency element. He's like, yeah, it's great that I won. I achieved one of my major lifelong goals to win on the European Tour. And, it was a very big event within the European Tour. And, he goes, but at the end of the day, no kid ever, woke up with the dream of just winning a European Tour event. There's bigger goals, there's bigger things we're trying to accomplish. So if I celebrate this too hard and I fall into this lull, which kind of happened to him the year before I met him on the Challenge Tour, was he won and then kind of got a little bit
Mm-hmm.
ego changed things, your perception of how things are going to work changes. So he wanted to keep on the grind. He won, but he certainly didn't want to have a hangover from winning. He wanted to get right back in the saddle and compete every time out. I think that, he's now addicted to competing, putting himself in contention and trying to win every time that he tees it up. And that's where he's very unique, is that, he did accomplish something extremely great. He won, a huge tournament, but at the same time, it's just, he's very aware of where he is in his process. And to him, it's really just, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the beginning, but it's also nowhere close to the dream. So there's still so much room. He knows there's areas he can get better. He knows there's more that he can do, and he wants to achieve his full potential. And just, back to that consistency, he just wants to make sure that he does everything. There's super successful people, and that's what they do. They win every day they wake up. And that's kind of where we're trying to go, is just win the day every day. If you win the day every day, you'll just have small gain after small gain after small gain. And 1% 100 times over is 100%. So just doing that every day.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's awesome that he has the foresight, the wherewithal to say, no, like I obviously we're going to celebrate. This was a huge goal and you have to celebrate your goals, but at the same time understanding if after every round you do a post round workout, this is not the time to stop. This is not the time to let your foot off the gas, as you said. And that was going to be one of my questions. Well, has this happened to him before? And it sounds like it's very easy to, if you don't do it once, it's very easy to then not do it again and not do it again, and then eventually just never do it, right? Like, obviously I'm taking the extreme there, but at the same time, it's the mental side of it that, again, we've been talking about: the consistency, the persistency, doing what you need to do, doing what you have to do, what you get to do on a daily basis. And we've been talking about it pretty much the whole time. But I know something, the first time you and I had a conversation, it was really interesting. You were talking about the mental side of golf, and golf is an extremely mental game, right? Like, obviously you need to have a good swing, you got to know how to putt a ball, but at the same time, it's you versus a course, and it's you by yourself pretty much the whole time. Yeah, you got a caddy, but it's you, and that's it. And I remember one thing you said to me, which really stuck with me. You were talking about how, just giving someone like Victor an extra $100, so that way he doesn't have to stay in a super crappy motel. He can stay in somewhere that you feel a little bit more comfortable in, you feel a little bit more at home. That in itself helps significantly. So what is it about the mental side that you personally subscribe to, but also why do you think that that's such an important part of golf, and why more people don't take advantage of it?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's important in life. I think
Of
that,
course, yeah.
like we were saying before, uh, golf is very synonymous with life. A lot of the same principles follow through. I think that we live in a world, especially now, that is, we're looking for immediate gratification. We're looking to always be told how great things are. The things that we put on social media, you never hear somebody, put something awfully negative out there. Okay, maybe Twitter here and there, but like if you look at Instagram, it's really all the like, here's my vacation, here's the round of golf
The
I played.
highlights, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's very much a highlight of your life. I think that the crossover between the things that Victor works on with the sports psychologists, I would say, are more life based, and it's more, understanding how to enjoy what it is that you're doing. And people say, oh well, it's golf. Well, it's, yeah, okay, so he's been on the road 7 of the last 8 weeks. He hasn't seen his girlfriend in over 2 months. His parents live in France, and he hasn't seen them in 6 months, for that matter. And I think that the just going out and having somebody that you can call and talk to about all of the little things that, having this happen or having that happen doesn't, neither one will be the impact, but the combination, um, the combination of things adds up. And you just, him just having somebody to talk to, I think has really helped him. And there's skills that she's provided him with, like when we met, he didn't even think meditation was something that could help him. Yesterday, he told me that he's meditated for 45 minutes every day for the last 2 months. So he's grown from nothing to, understanding how integral it is for him to just be in his own, in his own head, and just kind of trying to clear his thoughts and find breathing patterns. He told me this incredible story when he won the Dunhill. He was really nervous walking. He had just hit the shot into the green. The other guy had a putt to tie, and then would have had a putt to win. The guy missed the putt to tie, so he had 2 putts to win. But he told me that when he hit the shot and he was walking to the green, he was so aware of where he was in that moment. And he was so aware of his own emotions, his mood, his feelings at that moment in time. And he was able to say to himself, okay, you're really nervous right now, and this is expected behavior to put yourself in. And that kind of set this cue off. And he's got these series of 8 or 9 mental cues that when he uses certain words or he says certain statements, it's a cue for him to get back into the present moment. And so he obviously had thought something in that moment that he needed to get back into the present. And he has this tool that he uses, and he calls it colors. And so what he does is when he gets uber hyper nervous, he just starts to say in his own head. I mean, I don't think he says it out loud, but just in his own head, he just says all the colors that he sees. So he was saying that he was walking up to the green, and kind of the cool thing is that he was winning at St. Andrews, which is obviously, probably the home of golf. It's one of the most famous courses in the world. So there's a lot of history that goes on behind it. But he said that as he was walking up to the green, he was just saying all the colors that he saw. So he's looking down at the ground, and he sees, light green, dark green. He sees a divot. He sees the brown in the divot. He looks up, he sees the Dunhill logo, he sees the blue, he sees the white, he sees a guy in a red jacket. He's like, by the time that I was doing it. It was now my turn to putt, and all of the nerves that I had for that moment in time were now gone
Hmm.
because I didn't think about them. I just thought about what I was looking at and what I was seeing, and I was so present on dealing with the things that I needed to deal with that everything was easy at that point because there were no nerves. I wasn't winning the tournament. I was seeing blue. I was seeing green. I was seeing orange. And now I just have to roll this ball up there and put it in, and we're, we we win, and all the
Hmm.
glory that goes with that. So, I think it's just the mental side of it, I think, is everything. I think that the thing that I would say with regards to Victor is the closer that he gets to greatness and being one of the best players in the world, the more that it has to do with life and the less that it has to do with golf. It's how, are your finances in order? Is your family happy? Are you taking care of your family? Are you, these are the things that are more important at this point. There's no, his skill development is defined. He knows how to hit a ball, like you said. He knows how to make putts. He knows how to chip it close. He knows how to hit shots close to the hole. He knows how to, choose the right strategy in a sense. So now it's, how do you put yourself in a place where the only thing, when you're out there, the only thing that you're thinking about is the task at hand, and
Hmm.
nothing about tomorrow's round. I think that, the perfect example is the Masters, is because it's the first time I think in 4 years that a Frenchman has actually made it to play in the Masters, and he goes and gets interviewed by all the French media, and everything is about the Masters. And to him, he's like, I need to think about Abu Dhabi and Dubai and playing in Saudi, and now this week he's got Mexico coming up. So he's like, I'd rather just focus on Mexico. Don't ask me about what's going to happen to me in April. I'm trying to worry about this tournament right here in this block. And there's so many distractions that go with it. So you're just, for my role, my role is to just try and tune out all of the future looking things, and just put him in a position where it's okay. Here's where we are now. Here's what we're trying to do. Let's just hit this shot right now, and we'll worry about the third hole at Augusta when you're on the third hole
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
Augusta, and things like that. So, and I think that it should go beyond just golf and sport.
Absolutely.
It's things that society is really, the mental health, and it's good that we're getting rid of the stigma, and it's good that we're starting to accept that these are things that we have to work on. And I would highly advise it to anybody, regardless of whether it's for sport or for life, to just pick up the phone and call somebody, or
Hmm.
go see somebody, and just having somebody to talk to is everything at the end of the day. Because if you bottle it up, it's just going to come back and kind of bug you in the most inopportune times. And it's healthier to get it out than keep it in. And that's the same thing, with the athletes, with the golfers, with everything. So that's kind of my philosophy, is if you get the mental right, hitting golf shots is easy.
Absolutely. And you make a lot of great points. First, with the meditation aspect of it, I meditate every day. I have for the last year and change. And it is the awareness that helps me the most. When you hear yourself thinking a negative thought, I now have the awareness to say, well, don't think this, and then be able to, realize that I'm thinking it, stop thinking it, and go somewhere else. So I totally agree on that aspect. Another part is, as you were saying, he's at this level. He's top 50 in the world. Clearly, he knows how to hit a golf ball. Clearly, he knows what he's doing on that end. What's the, as you said, the decimal points that we can change to maybe give him an extra edge? Is it the finances? Is it making sure his family's happy? Is it making sure his dog can eat the food that his dog wants to eat? It's all these little tiny things, but at this point, this is what you have to pay attention to, right? Because everybody is extremely skilled. What are the little things that can help put you ahead? So I think that that's very, very smart and very important on your side. And then, yeah, I mean, it's super cliche, right, in sports and in life, but take it one day at a time, take it one shot at a time, one hole at a time. And it's a cliche for a reason, right? Like there's a reason so many people say it and do it and live it. And clearly you guys have been able to see that firsthand and what it's like with helping Victor and showing him, hey, if you just take this one step, one literal step at a time, it's very important. And I really like that story about the colors. I think that's really cool. And it really does show, like, just stay in the moment. Don't get nervous. Don't worry what could happen. Just pay attention to what's going on right now. I think that's very important. So thank you for all that. That was absolutely fantastic. And now, as you said, you signed 3 or 4 more golfers that are going to be coming
Yep.
onto the team, right?
Yeah, yeah. Have 3 other golfers signed, talking to a few more. I think it's, the things that we look for is just a willingness to put in, take constructive criticism, to put in the work on the right areas, willing to accept that, the mental is something you have to work on. I think that I've met a lot of guys who, they mask a lot of insecurity, if that's the right word, with, with ego, and you know there's no weakness in understanding that you can get better mentally. I mean, at the end of the day, Tiger Woods is the toughest mentally we've seen from a golf specific perspective, and he did things every day from when he was a kid to today to work on that. I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that he meditates regularly. I know that, there's been people in his, on his team in the past that have helped him work on these things. There's no weakness in working on the mental, and it's, you should feel, if it's the most important part of the game, why are you not working on it the most? It's not, there's no, where I think people struggle with working on it is there's no objective measure to prove that you're getting better. So a lot of it is very subjective and self-defined. I am getting better mentally. I am catching myself with negative thoughts. I am getting in my own way. And I think that it's finding guys who are willing to accept that they're looking for new ways of working on their game. That are willing to try new things, and also have the ability to believe that their destiny is to be great. I think that, I've seen guys that have all the skill in the world, but
They don't believe it.
the thought that, this is, that they're the guy that you're supposed to turn on Sports Center and see, tapping in the putt to win the tournament. They struggle with that vision. They struggle with that goal. We always say you set your goal to be the number one player in the world, and if you come 4 spots short, you're still making, the
That's pretty
money that you
good. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, when you set a goal that's kind of, I want to finish here on this tour, you're limiting yourself. You're putting yourself in a box. You're defining that the goal is not everything that you would hope and try and accomplish. So,
Hmm.
that's really what we try, is to try, and when we meet players, just try and ask them the questions like, this guy really truly wants to be the best in the world, and we'll do whatever we can to help him get there. And we know that because of his willingness to get there, he'll come as close as we can possibly get him, and we'll put all of the things in place to help him get as close as he possibly can. And eventually one of these guys will do it. And I think that a lot of people have kind of looked at me and said, that's crazy. You're out there for thinking that, you're going to find the guy who's going to be the guy. But in reality, why not me? Why
Yeah.
not that guy? Like, who is, who is Brooks Koepka? Who is Rory McIlroy? They're incredible players. And I have the utmost respect for them in everything that they're doing. But at the same time, they still at times hit bad shots. They
Hmm.
still, they don't win every week. There's plenty of room for them to get better. So if I can get guys to their level, why can't I get guys to be better than them? So I think it's just, having the belief that you can help guys be everything and more, and eventually they'll start to believe it and
Hmm.
understand it. And obviously Victor's really bought into the process, and he's as close to being there mentally as you possibly can. I think that he's still aware of where he can get better, and he still works on the things in the areas that he knows he can get better, but he's coming very close. And maybe you heard it here first.
Hey, I hope so. That would be awesome if we could get the interview right before he wins the Masters with his agent. I mean, that's a pretty darn cool get on my part. But no, I think you bring up a really good point that is honestly very surprising. I just honestly I assumed all golfers work on the mental aspect of it because it's such a mental sport. I mean, I am terrible at golf. Just awful. I mean, I love Top Golf, but that's about as far as I can go. And it's just very interesting to me because so many people, just the casual fan, knows how much of a mental game it is. These guys that are weekend warriors that'll go out and play 18 every Saturday. That it's very surprising to me that all golfers, especially professionals, then don't think like, well, maybe if the rest of the world knows something, maybe this is something I should at least look into or try working on at least a weekly, if not a daily basis.
Yeah, I think that, I would say that everybody at the top, at the upper echelon, works on it. I think that there's still an insecure, the things that Victor talks about are deep. Victor has addressed some, things in his life that he needed to improve. And I just, not everybody is willing to get hyper uncomfortable. I think that that's the thing that people don't understand about winning golf tournaments is that, the last 6 holes, the last 9 holes, really the whole final day for that matter, when you're in a position to kind of create, a legacy or win a tournament for that matter. Until you really do it, you don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that, the guys that typically put themselves in a position usually work on it. I think at a very high level, people work on it. Um, but I also think that one of the things that's interesting about it is that to be, a sports psychologist or a golf psychologist, you don't necessarily, um, there's no accreditation. There's no, proof that what you're saying is in the pudding. And I think there's a lot of people who have diluted the industry with no real backing and no real science behind what they're saying. They're just saying the things, similar to the things that I'm saying in this interview around, just staying present and do this, but there's no substance behind any of it. And I think that that's where guys, they've gone and they've worked with somebody and they didn't get anything out of it, or, they did it for a week and they thought they were going to get more out of it. And it just comes back to that, just consistently
Mm-hmm.
doing things is where it comes to, and just getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where the mental side of it, that's where journaling, that's where the meditation, that's where all of that stuff is huge, is just doing all of the details. The proof is in the pudding, and if you do the details, everything falls into place.
Yep, and it's so surprising. As I said, I've meditated, every day for the last however many days, and I've spoken to people about it, and I just tell them how it's affected me and what it's done, and then they say, oh yeah, I tried it for like a week. I was like, well, you can't try something like this for a week. That's not how it works. I mean, I honestly didn't really start to notice the effects it had on me until a few months down the road. But now looking back at where I was before I started and where I am now is a significant difference. It was just such small incremental steps along the way that you don't notice them while they're happening until you can look back and see how big of a gap has been created. So it's something that I truly believe in. I wish, I think everybody should do it. I mean, there's apps you can download on your phone right now, Calm, Headspace, they take,
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes. You can do a minute long one, whatever it is. I think they help significantly. Joe, this is awesome. I love this golf aspect of it, but I know with Mindful, you got another kind of side to the business a little bit that I definitely, obviously, as we started the conversation with how you got into this, which also, again, I do want to point out, if you were not on that specific, train in the London Underground, you would have not spoken with that one person who would have got you there. I always love that kind of stuff. There's so many opportunities for things not to happen. This one, that is stars aligning, and clearly
Yeah.
it was meant to be. I love that.
Yeah, destiny. I mean, we always talk about how, the way that the checks have kind of fallen into place, and there's been a couple of other things. That's the craziest part of the story is that I ran into James on the London Underground, and had that not happened, I probably wouldn't be sitting here on this interview with
Right?
you. So, it just helps understand that this is why this is meant to be, and that's why there's some destiny. Whenever you get little things like that, this stars aligned, and it was just meant to be.
It's really cool. Yeah, I always love little things like that because it would have been so easy for you to say, "Oh, maybe I want the train earlier or the train later," or what if I just walked or any of these things. But it turns
Yeah,
out,
the doors close a second
right?
earlier and they don't get on the
Hmm.
train. All of that
It's
stuff.
awesome, man. But I do love it. So the other side of Mindful Sports Group is a sport technology consulting side of the business. So so again, with the start of the story, that's kind of how you got into golf. It sounds like you started this application, this software to help golfers and help them get better from all aspects. So what exactly are you doing on the sports technology side with Mindful Group? That is, similar, different, or hit that Venn diagram in the middle with the golf side of it.
Yeah, so I think that when I did Winning Identity, when I did the first company, um, it took me a long time to understand what I was trying to build, what platform, what languages it needed to be written in, what sort of cloud-based servers did I need to put it on that it could scale. It's not as simple as I have an idea, build it. And that's I would say that having been through it and having had success, I would say that I have people reach out to me all the time with good ideas and bad ideas, but it's not as simple as I have this idea. How do we do it? there's a lot of research that has to go into it. And I would say that, before Winning Identity was successful, there was a lot of failure within the company in terms of trying to do things that, wasn't necessarily the right process and the right path, and didn't find the right developers and the right people to help me define it. And, I think that finding people that you can work with, finding the right team members that you can work with, I think is everything. So I have one of the guys on my team, is this uber talented programmer, and he worked with me at Winning Identity. He went with us through the acquisition, and then, it wasn't for him either. And I think he liked that, when we're a startup, you determine your own workflows, you determine your own, like we've been talking about, your own process. And he wanted to kind of come on board and help me. He was like, look, you know how to get projects. You have people approaching you all the time with, hey, I want to build this, I want to build that. And, he knows firsthand how many not great programmers there are out there. And we look at taking on projects that will help us feel fulfilled in a sense. So we don't necessarily take on every project. We're working on a project with a company up in Toronto called Modern Golf. They do golf club fittings, and we kind of have we had developed something similar to this in the past, and wanted to, we obviously went through the acquisition and didn't own it, but kind of see that there was a path that Blast didn't go down with that software, and we felt like this is still an area of the industry that we could majorly disrupt. We're working on there's a high performance basketball group out in a little north of the city here in Toronto, and called Athlete Institute. And they've helped a handful of guys make it to the NBA, but they've also helped hundreds of kids get Division I scholarships in the States. And they had some ideas as to how, the basketball industry could further themselves. And it was another project that we were both highly intrigued by, and a couple of other projects. And I think that when I went through the acquisition, and you have success and you make a little bit of money, you just want to help people kind of do the same. So, some of the stuff we do is just people call me and they ask me for my opinion. And, I'm happy to give my opinion, and happy to, Stephen and I are happy to sit in and kind of give our opinions on ideas. I would say that the number one thing we see most of is guys have great ideas, but it's in addition to an existing program. And that's not really a business in a lot of cases. And it's, sometimes it's really hard to tell people, hey, that's a great idea, but Amazon could do it in an hour. And there's probably a reason why they haven't done it. And it's just fun. I love hearing new ideas. I love hearing how people want to create change, how people want to move things forward. So we just, we don't really advertise necessarily that we do this. We just, I would say at this point, we're really close to maximum capacity on what we could actually develop and try and really be successful. But it's really about finding the right partners. It's about finding people that have great ideas, that are motivated to work, and we can build the technology, any which way, hardware, software, anything really. For the most part, we can find the right people to kind of help us forge through the things. And that's really, sports tech has always been very important to me. It's, and it's also with the Modern Golf project, it's something that we believe will help our golfers down the road as well, and will help the golf industry. So that's another important element, with that Venn diagram example. There is going to be some overlap, but the technology side of the stuff we're working on is very much in development, very close to, we have a couple that are in beta and things like that we're doing. But it's, it's what we know. It's what, it's more so tangible than the golf. Like Victor wins a tournament, that's tangible, that you can, celebrate it, and you get a trophy and so on. This is having an app that I can, we can be in a conversation, I can open the app up on my phone and show you. There's an everlasting impact to that. And we just like bringing ideas and cool things to life, and that's really what we're doing with it.
And I like how, again, the name of the it's Mindful Sports Group. Mindful because we've been talking about the mental aspect, I'm assuming, but also mindful because, as you were talking about, you want to impact. It's not just a random technology project. As you said, this is something where you can help more kids get Division 1 scholarships or make it to the NBA. You can help more golfers become better at what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I think that's a really interesting, the name itself, the twofold of it, I think is pretty cool. I don't know if that was on purpose. You're a smart guy, so I'm assuming it was. But hey, maybe I just figured something out and you can run with it if it fits.
Yeah, no, no, exactly. I mean, the name came from, when I started the company where I was, um, you know, mindful was a very important part of my. I mean, it still is. It's a word that is probably being overused now more so than I think when we did it, it was probably right at the start of the mindful craze. Um, but it's important, and it's important that we educate people on it, so it does, when people ask us, it does spark that conversation, and that's important to us.
And going back to the process of all of this, how do you divide your time between, obviously Victor, and now you're bringing on more golfers, and then also working on these technology projects, which, as you worked in a startup technology company beforehand, as you said, you didn't golf anymore because you had so much stuff you had to do. How have you been able to figure out a process to make sure that you're dividing your time in the correct way with both sides of the business?
That's yeah, and life on top of it all.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I don't think there's no formula to it. I think that it's I would say that I probably personally I spend more time with the golfers. I think that I have more to offer them directly. I think on the software side, Steven he runs with it more so than I do. We speak every day. We speak multiple times a day. We're in the office together when I'm in town. Um, but I think that I trust, it's when you do multiple things like this, it's about trusting the people that you have on your team. And he's somebody that I've obviously done a lot with. We've had a lot of success together. I think the world of him. I always joke with him that, if Victor became the number one player in the world, I'd still think that you're the most talented player that I know in the world. So it's, he's the number one coder in the world as far as I'm concerned, and he's much more than that as well. So I think it's just having the right people around you. I would say there's, some days I put 80% into the technology and 20% into the golf management. And some days I put 100% into the golf management and nothing into the technology. And it just comes from just knowing at the end of the day, that you trust the people that are around you. Obviously I've now, the technology is coming very close to launching some of this stuff. So, you know, it's, That's why we hired somebody to come and help on the golf management side of things. So it's just kind of playing it by ear and balancing things. I would say that when we did Winning Identity, I invested too much of my life into, um, the business and working, and felt
Hmm.
like I put 120% of my time. And I would say that it borderline got me to the point where I was unhealthy. I was working so much. And I would say that, with the first one, it was very much, let's just be successful. We'll make a lot of money. We'll work as hard as we can until we can get to that point. And I think that with this one, it's more, let's just take on projects we enjoy doing. And I think that when you enjoy what it is that you're doing, whether I put 14 hours into a day or 20 hours into a day or 5 hours into a day, that whatever it is extremely enjoyable. There's very little stress. We set, when we were Winning Identity, we needed everything done yesterday, whereas we have a little bit more patience now to do things. It's more about doing it right than doing it. So, do done is better than perfect. And we just kind of, go about our business in the right order and just
Hmm.
enjoy day in and day out what we do. And if it's 50-50, if it's 80-20, we just kind of roll with the punches.
Roll with it. And I think you make a really good point before. It is a sliding scale, right? It's never 50% golf management, 50% technology. I mean, certain days it probably falls like that, but understanding that some days you're going to need to put a little more love, care, and attention into one versus the other. And then other days it could be the complete opposite, which I think is interesting. And you've been doing this a while. So, I believe that you know what you got going on. And I think that part's really important. the last question I have for you, I guess, is like, what's next? Obviously, getting Victor to number one in the world, getting all these other golfers ramped up, ready to go, and getting them on, wherever they're trying to get to as well, which is also number one in the world, right? But I guess what are some of the next steps you see? I mean, if you don't see any, I understand. Obviously, you're kind of rolling with the punches, but what's kind of the vision moving forward for Mindful Sports Group?
Yeah, I mean, helping develop the players in general, whether it's Victor or Maverick, Frederick, Goodbender, any of the guys that are on our team, any of the other players that we've been talking to about bringing them on, helping them define their process is as much as it's what's next, it's really what's now.
Hmm.
And then on the technology side, it's just getting our two projects to market right now is really the current focus. I think that each, working with Athlete Institute and what we're building with them, and then working with Modern Golf and what we're building with them, those are uh, they're basically two businesses in and of themselves. So, we're fortunate that the partners that we have, they'll take the software off our hands in a sense, and they'll put it into, a business, and they'll go and sell, and they'll do all of those things. Um, so it's just, getting these two projects to market from a technology standpoint, as well as just helping these golfers get better and helping them stay present, is really our focus for, now and I guess in the future as
I
well.
love it. Well, I mean, as we were talking about before, we're not too worried about, the third hole on Augusta. We're worried about what's happening tomorrow in Mexico, right? So you practice what you preach, man. I tried to get you, but it clearly I couldn't I couldn't get anything out of
I
you.
wish that I had a better, here's what I want to do in 10 years and do this. I think that, that, like I said, these projects are super fulfilling. I think that, you know, they're two projects, in my opinion, that help clean up some of the dysfunction in the industries that they're in. I think that that's one of the things where technology will be huge going forward, is that it can solve a lot of problems that are, not really being solved today. So, that's where technology is very exciting to me, is that it moves society forward in a lot of ways, and helps kind of clean up areas of dysfunction that need it. And just as much as possible, just enjoying the day to day and doing it that way.
That's all you can do, man. And again, like you founded this company. You're working with two of your passions. Most people don't find one passion they can work with. You're working with two of them, and you're doing a damn good job at it. So there's really no, like, what else can you do? I guess just more of what you're doing, right? And that sounds like kind of what is on the horizon. So Joe, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Joe Shuchat, founder of Mindful Sports Group. Really appreciate your time today, man.
No, thank you. Awesome. Appreciate it.